campers, welcome back. It is so much fun to learn all about birds. Now, yesterday we talked a little bit about characteristics of birds. What makes birds different from other animals? And if you remember, we talked about how all birds have beaks. Beaks are special mouth parts that allow the bird to find food. Now, I've brought some birds to show you today. These birds are called mounts. The birds used to be alive. They're not alive anymore. They were in an accident or maybe died from old age. We have special permits at our park district that allows us to pick up dead animals. And we take them to a taxidermist that takes all the ooey gooey insides out, cleans them up, stuffs them with fluff, and then mounts them on some wood. And we use these for programs. Now today, what we're going to do is focus on their beaks. So take a look at the beak of this barred owl. It's bright yellow and it has a hook on it. And how about this little bird down here? This is called an American goldfinch. Are you able to see that little tiny beak? It's yellow too, but it's definitely a different shape from the barred owl. And here is a ruby-throated hummingbird. That's as big as they get. They're little teeny tiny birds. And can you see its long, skinny beak? And how about the bird next to it? This is a scaup. And it actually has a beak that's long and flattened. That's called a bill. And next to that is the northern cardinal. Its beak is pretty thick and strong, a lot bigger than the goldfinch beak that we just looked at. And how about this funny looking animal? This is called a woodcock. Look at its crazy long beak. Birds use their beaks in order to find food. And you can actually think about their beaks like being tools. We today are going to use our detective skills to see if we can figure out what these birds eat just by looking at their beaks. Now, I have some different tools laid out here on the table. We have a pair of tongs, a straw, chopsticks, a crochet hook, tweezers, pliers, and a metal sieve. And what we're going to do is use these different tools to try out getting certain kinds of food. How about this? This represents the nectar that's found in the center of flowers. And looking at our tools again, which tool do you think would work the best to get the nectar out from the flower? Did somebody say pliers? Ow, come on. Do you think that's going to get the water out? No. If you said straw, you are exactly correct. That straw can be put in there and the nectar sucked right out of the flower. All right. How about these nuts? I've got some sunflower seeds and a peanut. Looking at our tools, Which one do you think would be the best tool to use to break those nuts open so that the bird can get the nut inside? What do you think? If you said pliers, you are correct. Pliers are strong enough to break open the shells and get the seed out. All right. How about this? This is a container full of water with some Rice Krispies floating on top of it. This is representing little green plants that grow in the water, like grow in ponds and things. Which of our tools do you think would be the best to use to get the Rice Krispie plants out of the water? Crochet hook? No, that's not gonna work. How about the tongs over here? That's not working at all either. If you said the strainer, you are correct. The sieve, watch this. And I have a whole bunch of those water plants in the sieve now. All right, let's get another one out. How about this log? I've put some little tiny pieces of rice on that log, and that's going to represent little insects that crawl around the bark of a tree. Which tool would work the easiest to be able to pick out those little pieces of rice? If you said the tweezers, you are correct. You can use that easily to pick up the little pieces of rice. All right. And one last one. I've got another container that's full of oatmeal. This oatmeal is supposed to represent mud. And inside there's some worms. Which tool do you think would be the easiest to get the worms out of the mud? Now, some of you might say the tongs, and you would probably be able to, but if your beak was like this as a bird, look, you'd end up with a whole mouthful of mud, not just the worm. So let's try another one. The sieve would work, right? But once again, if you were a bird and your mouth was like that, you'd get a full mouth of dirt. So what else could we use instead? You said chopsticks. You are correct. They can go down into the mud and move it around and pull out a worm to eat. All right, now we have used most of these tools to help us figure out what kinds of food they would be best to use for. Remember, the straw worked best for the nectar. So let's take it back to our bird mounts. Which bird has a beak that would work like a straw? It is the hummingbird. You are right. Because the hummingbird has a beak that looks like a straw, even though you don't know anything about a hummingbird, you can conclude that it must eat nectar from flowers. All right, how about the chopsticks? The chopsticks work to help pick worms out of mud. Which of our mounts has a beak that looks like chopsticks? Oh, you're right. It is the woodcock. And the woodcock uses that beak to pull worms out from the mud. How about the tweezers? Now these are really teeny tiny, and they're used to pick up teeny tiny little bugs. Which mount has a little teeny tiny beak? Oh, you are right. It is the goldfinch. So we know that a goldfinch must eat little tiny insects. How about the pliers? Strong pliers that are used to crack open nuts. Let's see, we know it's not the woodcock. We matched that one. It's not the hummingbird. Which one that's left would have a very strong beak? The pliers match up to the cardinal. It has a very strong beak that's able to crush open nuts to eat. And how about the sieve? That was the one that we used to get the plants out of the water. Oh, if you said the scalp, you are right. It uses that big flat bill to scoop out the water plants and eat those. Now, we have one more tool, one more bird that we didn't actually use its tool. This crochet hook is just like the hooked beak of our barred owl. They use that hooked beak to tear apart the meat from the animals that they catch, such as mice, and that's what they eat. So, campers, we have learned all about these animals and what they eat just by looking at their beaks. We've been good detectives to learn all about what we call adaptations. Thanks for joining me today. Bye!